In the world of boxing, where pride, power, and precision collide in the squared circle, there exists a warrior whose name has become synonymous with devastation, Naoya Inoue. To some, he is simply the monster. But to one boxing nation, Mexico, his name has carried a far more chilling significance. With every punch he lands and every champion he dismantles, Inoue has etched a legacy that evokes awe, fear, and respect. The Japanese phenom has earned a ruthless moniker from the global boxing community, the Mexican executioner, and not without reason. Over the course of his career, Inoue has systematically dismantled some of the toughest and proudest Mexican fighters to ever lace up the gloves, breaking spirits, cracking jaws, and leaving audiences breathless with his sheer savagery. His dominance is not just athletic, it's symbolic, representing a deep-rooted rivalry between Japan and Mexico, two boxing powerhouses colliding on the world stage. And through every violent round and every vicious exchange, Inoue has staked his claim not only as a pound-for-pound king, but also as a living nightmare to every Mexican fighter who dares to stand across the ring from him. It all began in 2014, when a young and relatively unknown Naoya Inoue, in only his sixth professional fight, made the audacious leap to challenge WBC light flyweight champion Adrian El Confesor Hernandez. The Mexican veteran was no joke. He had 4 successful title defenses and a reputation for breaking down opponents with grit and experience. But for Inoue, this was no ordinary opportunity. It was the moment where he would make his introduction to the international stage, not with grace but with violence. As the bell rang that night, it became immediately clear that Inoue was not there to simply win. He was there to dominate. The monster tore into Hernandez like a man possessed, as if he were settling a debt in blood. With punishing right hands and surgical left hooks, he battered the Mexican champion from the opening bell. The Japanese crowd roared with every landed shot as their young warrior delivered a performance that redefined expectations. Hernandez, full of Mexican pride and courage, refused to back down. He stood his ground, absorbing Inoue's power, trying desperately to fire back. But every counter was met with even more precision, more fury. Inoue was faster, smarter, and far more brutal. He turned Hernandez's body into a canvas of punishment, each punch painting a portrait of dominance. Midway through the fight, the referee paused the bout to check on the Mexican's condition. The signs of defeat were already written across Hernandez's face. Still, he carried on, determined to finish the fight. But fate had other plans. In the 6th round, Inoue delivered a thundering right hand that sent Hernandez to the canvas. And in that moment, something remarkable happened. Rather than return to the fray, the battered champion turned to the referee and softly uttered, "No mas." The monster had struck. A message had been sent. A new terror had emerged, and Mexico would never forget his name. But Naoya Inoue wasn't finished. Just months later, still riding the momentum of his destruction of Hernandez, Inoue sought to conquer again, this time at super flyweight, against future Hall of Famer Omar El Huracan Narvaez. The Argentine-born fighter, long respected and admired in Mexico and Latin America, held the WBO title and a staggering 27 world title defenses on his resume. Inoue's move up in weight and opponent difficulty was bold. Some might say reckless. But the monster had no fear. The fight began like lightning. Inoue landed a crushing punch that caused Narvaez's legs to buckle almost instantly. Moments later, a second explosion sent El Huracan crashing to the mat like a building torn apart by dynamite. Still, the proud champion tried to return. And Inoue, ever the executioner, unleashed more. A brutal left hook dropped Narvaez for a second time, and somewhere in the chaos, Inoue fractured his own right hand. But even a broken weapon could not dull the monster. He lifted his arms to the crowd like a Roman gladiator in the Colosseum, soaking in the frenzy before delivering the final punishment. A thunderous 2-punch combination to the body sent Narvaez collapsing in agony, clutching his midsection and writhing in defeat. For the second time in a row, Inoue had taken a veteran fighter with decades of ring wisdom and reduced him to rubble in minutes. The message to Mexico and the world was now undeniable. This was not just a prodigy. This was a destroyer of champions. Despite his injured right hand, Inoue pressed forward with his career. In 2015, he was scheduled to defend his WBO title against another hungry Mexican, David Carmona. A tough-as-nails fighter with a reputation for taking punishment and dishing it back, Carmona was everything you would expect from a warrior raised in the crucible of Mexican boxing. Gritty, tenacious, proud. The two met in the ring with fireworks expected, and fireworks were exactly what followed. In the early rounds, both fighters traded bombs, setting the stage for a war. Inoue, still recovering from his hand injury, was forced to rely more on his left, but that did not slow him. He fired vicious left hooks with surgical accuracy, exploiting every opening Carmona left exposed. Carmona, in true Mexican fashion, kept coming. He fought like a man possessed, refusing to yield, even as Inoue's fists sculpted bruises across his face. The rounds wore on, and Inoue, essentially fighting one-handed, continued to outclass his opponent, unloading combinations and dancing around Carmona's counters. Despite the punishment, Carmona refused to fold. Round after round, he took Inoue's best punches and asked for more. The Japanese fans could only marvel at the iron-jawed resolve of the Mexican fighter. But Inoue's dominance was undeniable. In the final round, Inoue turned up the heat. Even with his compromised right hand, he landed clean, brutal shots that snapped Carmona's head back. The crowd roared as the monster hunted a finish, but the iron-willed Carmona stood tall until the final bell. When the judges rendered their decision, Inoue had secured only the second points win of his career. A win, yes, but Carmona had shown he could survive the executioner. Yet the point was still made. Even when injured, even with one weapon disabled, Naoya Inoue was twice the fighter most of his opponents could ever hope to be. Years passed, and with every new opponent, Inoue's legend grew. In 2017, he faced Ricardo Meserito Rodriguez, another proud Mexican fighter with big dreams and an impressive record. Rodriguez had won 4 in a row and entered the fight believing he had what it took to solve the monster. But like so many before him, he would soon learn the price of ambition. In the opening rounds, Rodriguez came out swinging. He was aggressive, determined and fearless, attributes every Mexican warrior brings to the ring. But Inoue was unfazed. Calm, composed, and calculating, he analyzed Rodriguez like a scientist studying a lab rat. Then he struck. Landing his trademark 1-2 followed by a crisp left hook, Inoue began to break down the challenger with mechanical precision. By the third round, the advice from Inoue's corner was clear. Keep throwing that left hook, and throw it with bad intentions. He followed orders. 30 seconds into the round, Inoue unleashed a perfectly timed left hook that sent Rodriguez tumbling to the mat. The count began. Rodriguez struggled, but the punishment had taken its toll. He couldn't rise, in time. Inoue had once again turned another Mexican dream into a nightmare. Another execution completed, another chapter written in a growing saga of destruction. But perhaps the most electrifying chapter in Naoya Inoue's campaign against Mexican boxing pride came in May 2024 when he faced Luis Neri. This was no ordinary fight. This was the culmination of a rivalry that had simmered for years. Neri, a controversial figure in Japan, had knocked out the beloved Japanese fighter Shinsuke Yamanaka twice under clouds of scandal, first with a positive drug test, then by missing weight. Those wounds had never healed, and now standing in front of the Japanese people was their vengeance, Naoya Inoue. The anticipation was palpable. Over 7 million Japanese fans tuned in. The arena was electric with emotion, with tension, and with vengeance. From the opening bell, the fighters traded with venom. Inoue, never one to waste time, came out hunting for Neri's head, but the Mexican, crafty and bold, fired back and landed. A thunderous left hook dropped Inoue in the opening round. For the first time in his career, the monster was on the canvas. The crowd gasped. Japan held its breath, but Inoue rose. Blood in his mouth, fire in his eyes. In the second round, he fought like a man who had seen his own mortality and rejected it. He came forward, relentless. In the third round, he dropped Neri with a vengeance, landing a crushing shot that sent his rival to the mat in shock. The fight had become a war. But wars are where Inoue thrives. By the fifth round, Neri was unraveling. Against the ropes, against the odds, he tried to weather the storm. But the monster had smelled blood. He unleashed a symphony of violence. Uppercuts, hooks, rights and lefts, each one thrown with the fury of 1,000 wounded hearts. Neri dropped again, crushed by an uppercut followed by a right hand that silenced every doubt and sent the message across the world. The monster had not only avenged Japan's pride, he had buried a legacy of disrespect. After the fight, Inoue revealed what fueled his performance. It wasn't just another win, it was personal. It was about justice. It was about restoring honor. And as he stood victorious once again over a Mexican rival, the world had no choice but to acknowledge his reign. Naoya Inoue has fought many great fighters, but his trail of destruction across Mexican champions is something boxing has rarely seen. With every fight, he not only showcases his elite skill set, speed, power, timing, and intelligence, but also his psychological warfare. He steps into the ring not as an athlete, but as a symbol of resolve, a silent storm of destruction. For the Mexican warriors he's faced, they have come with dreams, history, and pride, but they have left with lessons in humility, pain, and defeat. From Hernandez to Neri, every chapter has reaffirmed the same terrifying truth. In the world of boxing, there are fighters, and then there is the monster, the Mexican executioner, Naoya Inoue.